to uncover hidden jobs and display their much thought after soft skills. So with that, I will hand it over to you, Mary Jane, and Mariana, if you can stop sharing your screen.
She did that. She's fast.
Oh,
I'm
cool.
going to open my share tray and everybody can see that, I hope. Everybody can see that slide deck?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to minimize this. So, okay, great. So I'm really glad to be here with everybody today. And this presentation is a bit tricky for me because it's usually 2.5 to 3 hours. So I've done a couple of rounds of editing. Ideally for me, if you can ask questions as we go. I find that that's the best way for everyone to learn, is as soon as the point is in front of you that you want to ask the question about, please put it into chat or raise your hand, and I'll answer it right away. That works for me. So I want to start with this idea of what is the hidden job market? How do we define this hidden job market, and what are the reasons these jobs are hidden? Well, there's quite a few of them, and I may be missing some in this list, but jobs are sometimes still in the planning stages, so they're there, but nobody's made that available to the public yet or started talking about it in any big way. Sometimes a company can be doing a reorganization or restructuring, and a whole bunch of jobs start to show up because of that. Retirements, resignations, promotions, transfers. There's a lot of jobs that come up very suddenly in that area. In fact, at the very beginning of this pandemic, when there were individuals that were close to retirement and said, okay, I'm done, there were a lot of jobs that became available in that first 60 to 90 days, and that might still be happening. Somebody can be dismissed very suddenly and there's a job opening. Sometimes there's expansion plans or acquisitions that are known to be in the near future, and there are jobs available there. Jobs can get sent to a search firm but not be advertised yet. Jobs are supposed to be advertised in the future, but that hasn't happened yet. Or sometimes jobs simply aren't ever advertised because the employer prefers to hire by word of mouth. So those are some of the reasons that jobs are hidden. So this statistic, over 80% of jobs are not advertised, is really important. If you're following regular channels or common channels for looking for work, you may be missing 80% of your opportunities to find the job. And about 50% of business leaders, and this includes Google, Amazon, Facebook, etc., say they look at soft skills first. And the number one soft skill is communication. I'm going to share a list with you of all the soft skills, or the majority of soft skills, but the number one is communication. And over 400,000 people will leave the workforce this year due to the aging of the baby boomers. Now that number may, again, as I mentioned, be going up, because if you're close to retirement and this pandemic has taken a lot out of you, you may decide to exit early. So I'm including this quote by Albert Einstein: insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And this is often what happens when we're in a job search. We do the same steps over and over again, and we're expecting something different to happen. So soft skills, which is what employers are saying they're looking at first, they're character traits or their interpersonal aptitudes that affect your ability to work and interact with others. And they're not usually the type of skills that you can include in the resume skills section. You can mention them, but they're very hard to profile. You need an opportunity to showcase these skills as often as possible to potential employers. So how are you going to do that? Here are the top 10 soft skills. Communication is at the top, teamwork, adaptability, problem solving, creativity, work ethic, interpersonal skills, time management, leadership, and attention to detail. So how can you display all or any of these to a potential employer during a job search? What steps, how can you combine that into accessing this hidden job market? Well, I'm going to tell you a story here. Now, it's an ancient story, but it proves several of the things that we're going to talk about today. Way back in the early 80s, there was a depression across Canada. Interest rates were up in the early 20s, 21%, 23% interest rates. And there was a lot of unemployment, And I was 23 at the time. I had just bought my first house and I had lost my job. So I was frantically looking for work, as were thousands and thousands and thousands of other people. So I managed to get an interview with a consulting firm, and they decided to take advantage of the unemployment scene, and they interviewed 50 women at one time. They had a very big boardroom, and they brought all of us into the big boardroom, and the three partners stood at the front of the room and described the job to all of us. And then we were called out alphabetically for a 3-minute one-on-one interview with one of the partners. Can you imagine? Anyway, I got there early and I chatted with some of the other women in the room. And then because my last name starts with C, I got called out fairly early for this one-on-one interview. And when it was finished, a lot of the women I had spoken to were still in the boardroom. So I did something without thinking. I walked back into the boardroom and I waved at everybody and said, "Good luck, everybody." And I left. I got the job. I got the job for 2 reasons. One, they were very foolish to interview 50 people at one time. I don't know how they would have ever figured it out. But the second reason is that I did something that they saw as a soft skill they wanted in the job. It was a front desk job. It was about greeting guests, being charming, being able to communicate and have conversations with strangers, that kind of thing. And I demonstrated that outside of the interview process. So that's what we are going to talk about today. You need to put yourself in a position where you can display these soft skills you have to the person who's either going to be your manager, your direct report, or the owner of the company. Displaying these soft skills to HR sometimes isn't valuable because they're not filling a spot on a team. It's your supervisor, your direct report, the owner of the company who knows the skills and personality that they're looking for. So that's who you want to connect with. And you want to gather information from this person, have a conversation with them, so you can display your communication skills and other soft skills. And of course, you want to connect with them on LinkedIn and start creating a relationship with them. Now, as we are doing this, what we want to do is keep in mind my favorite communication quote, which is communication isn't saying something. Communication is being heard. When we're displaying our soft skills, when we're displaying our communication skills, what's important is that we speak and we present ourselves in a way that the other person can hear us. It's 100% our responsibility to make sure the other person can hear and understand us. So before you pick up the phone, and I'm going to give you lots of guidelines here today, do acknowledge why this is uncomfortable for you. Many people are uncomfortable picking up the phone, but especially in our pandemic-bound world, the phone has regained some of its popularity. So if it's uncomfortable for you, acknowledge why that is and see if you can alter your thoughts about it. The phone is an incredibly powerful tool because it includes the sound of your voice, which holds your energy, your enthusiasm. It says a lot about who you are. And the other thing that's great about the phone is our hearing is amplified on the phone, similar to being blind. There aren't the distractions of how I look or how you look. So we can really hear what people are thinking and feeling on a phone call. You want to summarize the value you bring to any employer you're going to reach out to. And you need to know, write it down, why will the employer appreciate and remember your phone call? And primarily, it's because so few people are doing this. Similar to my story about my job interview in the early 80s. No one else went back to the boardroom to say, good luck, everybody. I was the only one that did that. And I was remembered because of that. So your job search highest priority is to let potential employers know you exist. They can't make a great decision for themselves or the best decision for themselves if they don't know you're available. So it's vital that you create a plan that allows you to introduce yourself to potential employers in a very professional way, always keeping in mind they have or they will have jobs they want to fill. And they're always looking for quality employees with excellent communication and leadership skills. This is so important to remember. You're not bothering them. Good employers are always looking for quality employees. So strangely enough, I do want to start with your voicemail message during your job search. And by your voicemail, I mean the one on your phone. Know that employers have always used the phone as a way to reach out to potential employees and to conduct interviews, but that has increased exponentially. Prior to the pandemic, it had increased, and it's even more so now that employers will reach out to you by phone. So when they do that, when they phone you and you do not answer, what do they hear? What does your voicemail say about you? So at the very minimum, you want your voicemail during your job search to have your name clearly, really clearly. Because remember, if somebody's phoning you because they have your resume in front of them, they probably have a lot of resumes in front of them. So if they're not certain when they hear your voicemail that they've reached the right person, they are going to hang up. And chances of them coming back to try again are very, very slim. So make sure that your name is very clear on your voicemail message. That's the minimum that you should have there. But what if, I'm going to go back one, what if I am on a job search and the potential employer calls me and my voicemail says, it's Monday, February 8th. You've reached Mary Jane Copps. Sorry I've missed your call. I am in workshops the majority of the day, but I'm checking voicemail regularly. Please leave a message. I'll call you back. What does the employer know about you simply from that message? The fact that it's dated means you're organized. The fact that you're in workshops means you're not at home watching Dr. Phil. And when you do return their call, because you do check voicemail frequently, you're reliable. You keep your word. So your voicemail message is, again, similar to my going back into that boardroom and saying, good luck, everybody. You know, when I was looking for jobs many, many, many years ago, I've been an entrepreneur since 1987, but I could deliver a resume on a pizza box. I could put it on purple paper. I could do all kinds of things, right, that you don't have the opportunity to do today. But your voicemail is an opportunity to stand out. So the minimum, the best ever voicemail includes the date, your name really clear and concise. You can repeat your phone number and an indication of when you check messages or when they can expect to hear from you. So here's a sample. You've reached the voicemail of Mary Jane Copps at 902-123-4567. Sorry I've missed your call. I do check voicemail frequently, so please leave your name and number and I will call you back. Or it's Monday, February 8th, and you've reached Mary Jane Copps at 902-123-4567. Sorry I've missed your call. I'm in workshops today, but checking voicemail at noon and 4 p.m. Please leave a message. I will call you back. Now, remember that I'm advocating that you call your direct report, your supervisor, the owner of companies you want to work for, or you know your skill set is a fit for that organization. And again, you want to speak to your supervisor, the direct report, or the owner of that company. So part of that really does involve leaving voicemail messages yourself. So when you're making these outbound calls, you always want to leave a message. Everybody has call display. So if you don't leave a message, your call will be seen as a telemarketing call. And the next time you call, it's unlikely that they will pick up. So make sure that you always leave a message, even if it's, you know, hi, Ahmed, it's Mary Jane calling. I'll call again, but always leave a message. Don't create phone tag. When you're leaving a message, provide enough information about when you're available and that you will continue to follow up. This is the professional thing to do. So it's something like this sample. Hi, Joanne. This is Mary Jane Copps calling. I have a quick question for you. I'm available today until 3 p.m. and you can reach me at phone number twice. If we don't connect by 3 p.m., that's fine. I'll follow up with you again tomorrow or Friday or next week or early next week. Whatever you put in here, make sure that you can do it, that you're going to keep your word there. Now you'll notice that I didn't leave the details. In that message, I didn't say, hi, it's Mary Jane Copps calling Joanne. I have experience in XYZ, and I'm hoping to talk to you about job opportunities. What will happen if we leave all those details, because Joanne is very, very busy, is she will make a decision based on your voicemail message. And she may just listen to your message and go, oh, yeah, we don't have any job openings. And that'll be the end of that. So the reason to leave the voicemail is to inspire the callback. Remember, what we want to do is have a conversation with this person. We want to network with this person. We want to connect with this person. So it's important to leave it at, I have a quick question for you, and I'm going to show you what that quick question is going to be. And persistence is definitely important here. Persistence is not pestering. Lots of people get that mixed up, but they're not the same thing. Persistence is a characteristic we want in people we work with. I want my accountant to be persistent. I want my plumber to be persistent. I want the people I work with to be persistent. So displaying persistence, it's a soft skill. So don't give up. I recommend leaving 5 messages over sort of 2.5 weeks. And you will leave a final message because you can't keep chasing people forever. But your 5th message is going to leave the door open so that in case Joanne is dealing with illness or a family issue or whatever, and that's why she hasn't gotten back to you, when she can, she'll do that. So this is the final message. Hi, Joanne. This is Mary Jane Copps calling. Sorry I've missed you. I do have one quick question for you and will welcome your call whenever it's most convenient for you. You can reach me at. So you're leaving a final message, but you're also leaving the door open for Joanne to call you when she can. Now, Ahmed, I can't see chat. I'm only seeing on the screen my slide deck. So are there any thoughts or questions there for me at this moment?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I'm marking it. I will let you know whenever there is.
Super. Thank you.
Actually, there's one just now. Maybe.
Okay.
Mariana, do you want to ask your question?
No, I was just making a comment that voice message sometimes is stressful when we just go to the voicemail and we have to say something. And what I learned is I prepare my message just in case. So even if I want to write the message, I write the message and then I call the person. If it goes to the voicemail, it's ready. If not, then. Yeah.
Good for you. That's exactly right. And you know, with the way the world is, you have a higher chance of getting voicemail anyway, but you're absolutely right. And it isn't that this scripting is a negative thing. Having the words in front of you, whether you write them out as a paragraph or whether you write them down as points, again, this is about displaying your soft skills and your communication skills. So that's a great point, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe Mike, you definitely get so many voice calls and voice messages. Do you want to comment here as well as a recruiter?
Absolutely. I think what she's saying is absolutely true. And, you know, communication is key, that you're able to get your message across quick and simple and not make it too detailed. And they'll more than likely call you back. If it's too detailed, as you said, Mary Jane, they will make a decision then and there whether they want to call you back about that position or not. So keep them guessing and intrigued by it. Very, very good one. Very good.
Thanks.
Communication is key, though.
Absolutely.
You've got to speak clearly, and so that the person at the other end that's listening to the message is able to understand you. And for lots of people that are immigrants, and I'm an immigrant also, you won't believe it, but I am, slower and enunciate the words clearly. That is key. Key. Because if they figure you can't communicate, that's the end of the call. You'll never get one back.
And you can practice. I mean, that's a good point, Mike. You're reminding me. When we're nervous, we often speak faster. So if leaving a voicemail message, talking on the phone makes you nervous, please practice. Because we all get better at the things we practice.
And watch Canadian TV.
Ah, there you go.
You may laugh, but I have one guy that used to work for me as a software developer. He became a team lead, and he's from China, and I'm not. And he would tell me to tell them to slow down, open up their jaws to enunciate the words. He could understand, but his colleagues couldn't, anyone that he was interviewing. And he would say to them, watch English TV because you'll learn from English TV.
Absolutely.
Which is key.
Great.
Just a
Thank
little
you
point.
for that.
You're welcome. Doing a great job, Mary Jane.
Thank you. So when it comes to conversation, so we want to get on the phone the person who will be your direct report, your supervisor, or maybe the owner of the company. So we want to have a conversation with them. And to have a great conversation, there's 4 things we need to keep in mind. The first one, it's about the backstory. And what I mean by that is what's likely going on in the background. We can't know everybody's total personal story, but we can take some very educated guesses. So I'm going to talk about that. Leaving messages that get returned, that's about the phone, and we've already discussed that. Once this person's on the phone with you, you want to inspire the conversation. You want to help them relax, and you want to start building some trust right away. And then you want to extend the conversation so that it's a great conversation, it's memorable, but also so you have the opportunity to learn something from this person. So the first aspect of the backstory I want to mention today, it's very important to express some compassion. And compassion simply means a suffering with another. And this is so incredibly appropriate today, right? We are, for the first time in human history, all experiencing the same thing at exactly the same time. Now, some people push back when I say this. They say, oh, no, Mary Jane, there was, 9/11. Well, 9/11 was a very different experience in Manhattan than it was in Toronto, than it was in Gander, Newfoundland. So it wasn't the same for everybody. And World War II wasn't the same for everybody. If you were in London, England during the Blitz and being bombed every night for over 100 nights, it was much different than being in Washington. So if we don't express some compassion, we come across as disconnected, we come across as in denial, we come across as just out of touch completely. Having said that, we don't want to stay in the emotional space. We simply want to visit it to let the other person know that we're connected with the universe that we're all living in, right? So here's some examples. You can mention or include compassion at the beginning of a conversation. So, Chris, the reason for my call today is I've admired your company's community spirit for so many years. I hope that all is well with you and your staff. I have a strong background in both accounting and customer service, and I'm wondering, what's the best way to organize an informational interview with you at this time? So that could be the beginning of your conversation. And there's your quick question. What's the best way to organize an informational interview with you at this time? You could express your compassion at the end. Chris, thanks for taking the time to speak with me today. I know things are really challenging right now. I look forward to our next conversation. And you can express it in an email. First, I hope you and your family and your staff are all doing well. Second, I've admired your company's community spirit, etc. So make sure it's part of your communication, this compassion piece. The second part of the backstory that's important is defensiveness. And this is where when the other person answers the phone, we hear defensiveness. And that's what makes us nervous. But it's historical, right? It's over 40 years ago, Bell introduced cheaper long distance to businesses throughout North America. And ever since that moment, we've been receiving what I'll call telemarketing calls. calls from people who are pushy. They're not really interested in us, but they want to try to sell us something. Over 40 years. That's a long time. And of course, these calls now have become much more aggressive and even criminal. So the idea is that all of us are defensive when we receive an unexpected call from someone we don't know. It's not personal. It's part of our culture. After 40 years, this is part of our culture. So don't let that defensiveness throw you off. Understand that you have to dissolve that defensiveness by how you structure your conversation. And I'm going to show you how to do that. We want things on our own schedule. I have a colleague that has told me this is Netflix culture. The idea is, I grew up in a time when if I wanted to watch West Wing or Seinfeld, I had to be in front of the television when the theme music started, or I missed out on the opportunity. Now, of course, I can watch anything I want whenever I want, and this is impacting phone calls. So that unexpected phone call can be perceived as an unappreciated intrusion. So what we want to do, if possible, is treat phone calls, even 15-minute or 10-minute phone calls, as meetings. So several years ago, I invested in an appointment app. They're not very expensive. I happen to have chosen Calendly, but I'm not telling you to. There's one called 10 to 8. There's one called Acuity. If you do a quick search on best appointment apps for 2021, you'll find a list there. And what it allows me to do is send you a link to my calendar so you can book our conversation based on your schedule. So this is what it would look like if I sent this to Mike for a 15-minute phone call. He would get this, and all the blue dates are dates when I have 15-minute options available. And let's just say that he chose the 29th of the month. When he chooses it, I'm not available that morning, but it shows him that I'm available starting at noon, from noon to 1:45. There's several options there for him to book this 15-minute conversation. And once he chooses one of those, it'll appear in his calendar and my calendar. So now when I reach Mike, he's prepared. He's set aside the time to talk to me. He's going to be less defensive because it's in his calendar and it's at a time that he's chosen, so he feels in control. So it's a great way to set up phone calls. And because we don't know who is checking what, when, are they voicemail people? Are they email focused? Are they LinkedIn focused? We don't know. So we actually need to do all three things. You want to leave an inspiring voicemail message. In that message, you want to say, I'm also going to send you a quick email in case that's easier for you. When you send that email, you want to use the subject line RE:, my voicemail earlier today. The RE: is still seen by most spam filters as an ongoing conversation. So your email stands a better chance of getting through to their inbox. And then if you aren't connected with them already, you're going to send them a LinkedIn invitation. You're going to do all those three things, one right after the other. I've often left messages and then done the other two things at the end of the day. It's not as effective as if I do all three right in a row. And why LinkedIn? Well, the biggest reason is down here, the mutual connections. This builds trust. So when I go to look at Ahmed's LinkedIn profile and we have 180 people or 20 or whatever, I have more trust in him right away because we have people in common. So it's important to use that LinkedIn profile as part of your job search. I want to visit learning and listening very briefly. You do want to do a lot of research before you make these calls. You want to read through their website. You want to take a look at who all works there. You maybe want to search articles about them online or read their press releases. Ask colleagues and friends about the company. Those are important ways to research. Always be prepared with questions that demonstrate the research you did, that you just aren't calling them randomly, you've done your work. And in any conversation, listening is vital. And we do have 5 levels of listening available to us. So I like to make fun of myself for this first one. Listening to say yes or no, this is how I run my marriage, right? Yeah, we're doing that. No, we're not doing that. It's our fast, quick way of listening to people and making decisions. But most of us live here in this listen to respond place. So I'm listening to you, but I'm actually thinking of what I'm going to say next. So 60% of my brain is not listening to you. So you really want to be here throughout your job search process. Is you want to be listening to understand, which means your mind is not preoccupied with what you're going to say. And a trick for this is to have a pen or a pencil in your hand. So plenty of studies have been done now that for whatever reason, in terms of how our brains light up, when we have a writing instrument in our hand, we are a better listener. Doodlers are better listeners. So you really want to work on making sure that you're a great listener, and that part of your ability to listen is to have open-ended questions available, ready, to help the other person understand themselves as they're talking to you, to open up that conversation. And you really want to listen without intent. So as you're making these calls, of course, you're looking for a job. But once you're in conversation with someone, you're networking. Don't worry about, is this going to be a job? Is this conversation going to be a job? No, no, no. Relax into the conversation and network. So what kind of questions can you ask? What challenges is your industry currently facing? How would you choose to start your career today? What experiences should I make a priority in order to catch the attention of employers? If you were hiring right now, what would prevent you from interviewing me? These are all open-ended questions that keep a conversation going, allow you to learn, but the fact that you're asking them tells your potential employer a lot about your soft skills. And if for whatever reason you can't think of an open-ended question, this is the grandmother of open-ended questions. Just simply say, tell me more. So that person that you're networking with, that supervisor, that company owner, they start telling you about the company and you just say, oh, tell me more about that. And that easily extends the conversation and builds relationship. So in terms of the conversation itself, what I know for sure is that not every conversation you're going to inspire will result in you getting an interview, but every interview you do book will be the result of a conversation you inspired. These conversations are so essential to your job search. So you want to make sure that when you're having these conversations, when you get them started, when you're making these calls, that you get rid of any iffy language. Hope, I'm wondering if, I'm just calling to. You want to be really direct. And when you're speaking to someone you've never spoken to before, let go of this question, how are you? There's only 2 provinces in Canada where you have to ask this question. And one is Quebec. It's part of French culture to make sure you ask this question. And in Newfoundland. In Newfoundland, you always have to ask, how are you? But everywhere else, when we ask this question of a total stranger, it makes them more defensive because it indicates this could be a sales call. And also, is this a good time? Well, this was very polite in the years when we were all at desks with landlines. Today, it's an out. If someone calls me here, like let's just say they called me right now and I answered and they said, is this a good time? I'm going to say no. So it closes the door very quickly. So here's your iffy language. Just wanted to, hoping that you, wondering if you, might you, could you maybe, when might you. You want to use language that is confident and direct. And instead of asking, is this a good time, use your ears. If you hear voices around them, say, well, it sounds like you're in a meeting, or it sounds like you're driving your car. Or if they sound really stressed, say, it sounds like I've caught you at a difficult time. So know that when anyone answers an unexpected call, they have these 2 questions that pop up in their mind, and they kind of flash there like neon signs in Vegas. And one of them is, what's this about? And the next one is, okay, what's the value to me of this conversation? So you want to be direct. You're going to let them know what you're calling about right away. You're going to describe the reason for this call so that it's about them, not you. You're going to make your value statement personal to them so they don't feel like you just opened up a phone book and are calling everybody. And then you're going to continually ask those open-ended questions we spoke about. So to say, what is this about? I'm going to call Mike and I'm going to say, Mike, this is Mary Jane Copps calling, and the reason for my call today is. So what Mike hears is, I'm going to get right to the point. And as soon as I do that, he's going to give me 20 seconds of undivided attention to answer the question, which is, what does my call have to do with him? Why should Mike give me his valuable time? What's in it for him? So in this 20 seconds, I have to engage him and let him experience my respect for his time. And then I'm going to end my little 20 seconds with that open-ended question, right? So here's 3 more options. How might my skills be valuable to your team? What skills are you currently looking to add to your team? What is the best way for me to stay top of mind when you are next hiring? Great questions. So here's the example. I'll put Mike in instead of Kathy. Hi, Mike. This is Mary Jane Copps calling. The reason for my call today, I was reading about your company in the Chamber magazine. It's about Mike. And realized that you are growing your software team. Value for Mike. I have extensive experience in 7 computer languages, including JavaScript and Python. I'm wondering, how might my skills be valuable to your team? So Mike is definitely going to answer that in some way. And you have started a conversation with someone who's important to your job search. You are now networking. Take a deep breath after you do this and relax into the conversation. As you can see, as Mariana mentioned, you need to have this organized ahead of time, right? Here's another example. Hi, Mike, this is Mary Jane Copps calling. The reason for my call today, I noticed your company while on LinkedIn this week and realized you have an outbound sales team. I have extensive experience in outbound sales, and I'm wondering, when are you next hiring? So it can be an article, it can be something you saw at their website, it can be something that attracted your attention on LinkedIn that you include in your conversation. So that is the end of the slide deck. And I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to stop my share because I can I do that? Yes. Okay. Questions, comment. Okay, so Tomas is asking, which question should I use instead of how are you? Can I use I hope you are doing well? So Tomas, if you're calling someone you've never spoken to before, you could ask that question later on in the conversation, but at the front end, because you want them to hear you're not going to waste their time. We want them to hear that you're going to be really respectful of their time because everybody's overwhelmed. You're simply going to say, hi, Ahmed, it's Mary Jane Copps, and the reason for my call today is. So skip the health question when you're speaking to someone you've never spoken to before. Once I talk to Ahmed once, the next time I call him, I can certainly ask about his health.
Which is true. I do it the other way around. When I call people, I ask them how they're doing, because once you get them speaking about themselves, they feel more comfortable in spending time regarding a position you may have for them. Even though they may be busy, they'll take that 15, 20 seconds or, half a minute, 1 minute to chat with you. I'm at the other end, not looking, but searching and hunting for them. So, and people do like to speak. They do like to speak about themselves.
They do, definitely. I think when you're calling maybe a senior VP or you're calling a president of a company,
it's different.
Yeah, you might have to be careful there.
It's a different approach.
Yeah, just slightly different. That's right.
Okay, we have another question. Thomas, do you want to unmute yourself and go ahead?
Hey guys, thank you for the meeting and everything. So my question is related with the previous one. So the tip that you gave, don't waste their time. It applies for emails too.
Yes, it does.
Because I do all the time. It's like the first thing. How are you? I hope you are doing well.
Yes. So what you're doing there, and I can speak, from my own experience, and is you're making me suspicious. You're connecting with maybe my cynicism, but also, I get about 150 emails a day. So one of the first things that I do is sort through the stuff I'm not going to deal with. And so if it's a stranger and they're asking me about my health, I'm like, okay, I don't need to deal with this. Mm-hmm. So it's much better to be direct and say, Mary Jane, the reason I'm writing you today is, and then you make it about them. I was reading about you, or, I attended your webinar on Sunday. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to read that. Okay. So make it about them, whether you saw them on LinkedIn or read an article or a press release, or then they will read the email for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Great question.
Very good.
We have Genevieve asking question. If you have applied to a position that you feel you're completely qualified for, is it really advised not to contact them?
Well, we're going to want to hear from Mike about this, but if you're applying on an ad and the ad says no phone calls, that means no phone calls, I'm pretty sure. However, what often occurs or what occur, maybe it's not often, but occasionally, is they will do an initial hire on that ad that does not work out. So I would keep that ad, and maybe in 4 weeks or 6 weeks, I would call that direct report or that supervisor of that team or whatever. Again, contacting human resources is not necessarily a viable way to increase your network or to learn more about other hidden jobs inside that same company. But Mike, you may want to add to that because you would have more direct experience.
Yeah, it depends on the size of the company. So if you're dealing with a company that has like 150, 200 people, and they'll get like maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 resumes for a position, they can't, be answering the calls for each one of those. But with a smaller company like us, we relish those calls. Like, to me, speaking with someone is much more better than communicating by email. Email to me is the last resort. I'd rather get a read on their personality, their communication, their actual skills in that 30 seconds to a minute, instead of communicating back and forth by emails. As you say, you get 100 emails a day. I may get, maybe 30 or 40. If I start, working there back and forth, I'm not making any money. My money is talking to them. That's the whole key. And you can differentiate and decide who would be a fit. But if it's a small company you're dealing with that you're applying to, absolutely call. Phone conversation is key. And if it's a big company, you can understand, like I have people calling me say, I've submitted my resume to this company that we work with. Can you put a word in for me? No, I can't, because if there's 200 other people that have submitted also, that's their process. And if they say no phone calls, no phone calls. But when you do your research on the company, you will know that, on how big they are. Yeah. And then you're able to say, yes, I may give a call if they have, 50 people on staff or 25 people. Then you're able to communicate with them. Good question.
Yeah. And I remember, when I was, just landed, came to Canada, and I spoke to Mike, at the beginning of my career journey. We spent hours speaking, like, we had that connection, and Mike helped me a lot, at my early days, putting me in front of, interviews and others. So, again, when you build that relationship, it pays in, like it helps you afterwards.
And not only that, it's networking. So if you do speak to somebody, as you were saying, Mary Jane, earlier on, you left an impression on that person. That person may not be hiring, but he may know someone, a former colleague of his that is hiring. And, I'll send him a quick note, say, hey, I've spoken to this person. They sounded keen. They seem like they're skilled for the role. You should give them a call. Boom. And that's the networking portion, which is key. It's great. It really is.
Yeah, and it's, people in similar industries stay in touch with each other. People are part of CEO networking groups, other trust groups that they get together with, etc. So, yeah, the networking is really, really key.
It is.
Okay, do we have any other questions from the group? Anyone want to unmute and ask a question? Go ahead, Mariana.
Yeah, I just want to say I love the, I believe we call 5 levels of listening. And I totally relate to it. At the beginning of my career, I was on the 2nd level, and I practiced a lot to start having the active listening, where I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say. I'm thinking about what the person is saying and getting feedback from there. And I think it's very important to all of us that are looking for jobs to keep practicing that.
It's true. And it's a life skill. It's not something that we learn and keep, because there's always distractions in our world. So it's absolutely.
And that is so key, because the best people are the listeners, because they will listen to everything. And if people are the ones, and I'm guilty at times also to butt in and add comments while they're talking. No, listen to them, listen clearly, absorb everything, and then follow up with them, which is key. Listening is great. It's a key asset to have.
Paul, you have a question? Please go ahead.
Actually, just wanted to comment as well. Listening for me as a chiropractor, when I was in practice, I used to have to go into a report or where I'm actually closing a sale. And it was really stressful for me until I started looking upon it as a time to get to know somebody and to really hear what they're saying. And after that, every sales meeting I went into was this opportunity to listen to someone and hear where they're coming from, and it became a pleasure. So what was shared today is brilliant. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And I see Genevieve, you have a question. So right now, your industry's been very hard hit, and you want to transfer some of your skills to other industries. That's always a challenge, but you're finding it difficult to convince employers with my soft skills to hire you. How to convince the employer to look at your CV that has been tailored to the job position. So I think, again, and it would be good to hear from Mike, but the conversation is key.
So true.
Right? So they have a lot of resumes, and they'll probably have a lot of resumes from other people who are trying to transfer their soft skills. But getting them on a phone, on a video call, and letting them hear what a great communicator you are, letting them see how organized you are because you left them 3 voicemail messages that were clear and understood. That is very similar to my story, walking back into that boardroom. That's going to set you apart. And that's what you're looking for. How can you stand out in this crowded universe?
So true, it is. And if you're able to call, as I said before, depending on the size of the company, if you're able to call and speak to somebody in a management role instead of just HR, because HR will just kind of brush it away, and just try and get your point across that yes, you know you're probably changing careers, different skill sets, but you're easy, you're eager to learn, eager to adapt to the new roles, and willing to offer, yourself in terms of learning more and growing with the company. You have to demonstrate that. If you get an opportunity, absolutely. But for the resumes and HR, all HR will do is just look at the resume, and they'll look at the job description. They'll try and match, and they'll look for the most perfect match for 2, the 2 or the best resume for that role. And then they'll decide, okay, this is a good candidate to call an interview or schedule an interview, and this is a good candidate, this is not, you know what I mean? That's how they, sift through them. So I think if you're able to get through and speak to somebody in management, then you may have a better chance, absolutely. But it's very difficult changing one industry into another, unless there's similar skill sets where you're able to, easily pick up the new skills.
So Hicham, I hope I'm saying that right, Hicham. So any ideas how to get the phone number of the hiring manager? This is tricky research, but there's lots of different ways. As we all know, Google is very powerful. And I've often been able to find people's phone numbers on documents that don't even relate to work. So maybe they ran a marathon and their phone number was on that sheet, or there's all kinds of ways to do a Google search and ask for a phone number, but also simply calling the company's main reception and asking, I'm wondering if you can help me. I'm looking to reach so-and-so. What is their phone number? So there are various ways that you can do that.
And Mary Jane, if I can add to this, we had a session 3.
Oops.
I think
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, you're frozen, Ahmed.
One other tip for that, just while we are waiting, is I learned from someone, I don't remember whom, but to find their emails. Sometimes when you receive an email from the HR, and then it comes like, my name is Mariana Pinto, so M Pinto, and the manager is Mary Jane, so M Jane might be their email address with the same end. So it helps to send directly emails to them. But sorry, Ahmed, I was just making something while you were frozen.
Yeah, no. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah. So yeah, our previous speaker, Jessica, she showed us,
Oh,
Is he on Bell or Rogers?
Yeah. Well, we had the session with Jessica, and we'll have another session next Sunday, which Ahmed's gonna give a lot of important tips for strategies when looking for jobs. So I believe this is what he's trying to add to the group.
no way, that's true.
I'm just trying to help you.
okay. So you're back, Ahmed. Oh, no,
No.
you're frozen again. That's too bad.
So
He looks happy
anyone...
though. He looks happy though, right?
He
Yeah.
does.
It's a nice pose.
Anyone else has any other question? So I don't know if he can hear us, but we could prepare for the selfie.
Okay.
And we take a selfie at the end of the session, and you can turn on your camera, put your beautiful smile on a Sunday morning.
Just 1 second.
Okay, so I believe it's still frozen, but thank you everyone for being here.
Pleasure meeting.
I hope you join our Facebook, LinkedIn, and you join our next call Thursday and one more call Sunday, and we're gonna keep in touch. I'm just gonna copy here the link for the Google form. We wanna hear from you.
Do you have a minute to chat, Mary Jane?
Yeah, certainly.
I'll just chat with you for a couple of minutes.
Okay, I'm just going to check on something. I'll be right back.
Perfect. Thank you, Ahmed. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mary Jane. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. It was great.